So a little while ago, I had done a video book review for a book called Bogali, which is on sort of Slavic mythology and folk beliefs, etc. And I don't do a lot of book reviews on this channel, but I wanted to do another one today. This is for a book called A Fairy Path by Daniela Simina. It's actually the second or third book by this author that I've read. The first one, which I also highly recommend, called Where Fairies Meet. This one is basically comparing and contrasting Irish and Romanian fairy traditions. So the author is Romanian by birth, I believe in the United States now, but grew up with Romanian folk beliefs and culture. And so this book is particularly interesting because it's looking at the differences and similarities between Irish fairy beliefs and Romanian fairy beliefs. And there's a lot more similarities than you might expect, or maybe you do expect it. There's also some interesting differences. So I really thought this was a fascinating book. When I found out the author had more books coming out, of course, I was immediately interested and curious about where that was going to go. So when this one came out, I was really looking forward to reading it because this is a little more biographical in nature, or autobiographical in nature. It's the author's personal story of growing up in Romania, in communist Romania, and having these experiences, these insights into the spirit world, the other world, the world of what we, in English would call fairies, and sort of how that shaped and influenced her life, and also how her life was shaped and influenced by these folk beliefs and by these interactions. And it's really kind of fascinating to see how intertwined the beliefs were, the experiences were with her life. I have a lot of resonance for that myself. I kind of have a similar background in some ways with growing up with experiences and with beliefs that maybe not everyone agreed with or held. The big difference in this case is that the author was being trained or guided in a particular direction to take on a particular role, what we might refer to as a cunning woman, a witch, a fairy doctor, badfassa. Like, there's all sorts of terms for it. I'm not even going to try to say what the Romanian term might be because I don't know and I would mispronounce it anyway. But it's really interesting to see the way that the culture was at the time the author was growing up. Even if you're not interested in fairies and fairy beliefs, I think it's got a lot of value just for that aspect of it, sort of the history that you can find with it. But if you are interested in fairies and fairy belief, if you're interested in learning more about Romanian folk beliefs, Romanian fairy beliefs, which are extremely hard in my experience to research, especially if you don't speak the language, which I do not. If you're interested in learning more about folk magic, because there's some of that in here too. If you're just interested in sort of seeing what it was like for someone to grow up with these beliefs and experiences and sort of come into an understanding of them in the middle of also coming to an understanding of just life in general, I think it's really worth checking this one out. The book itself is set up so you have a note from the author, which I do recommend people read. Sort of sets up the tone for things and lets you know where this is all going. There's actual 18 chapters to the book, which is the author's story, starting from when she was fairly young and sort of what the experiences that she had were, how it affected her life, as I mentioned, how her life went in particular directions because of these things. I also really liked the fact that the author made it clear that, for some people, if you have these sorts of experiences, if you have these connections to these spirits, it's not necessarily a choice. It's not voluntary to decide you're going to go in a direction with this. It's almost more like self-defense, like you have to do it. You're experiencing it anyway. It's sort of a best way to deal with it, which again, I have a lot of resonance with that myself. So I enjoyed seeing how that played out in this case for this author. There is an epilogue. There's also some notes. I recommend reading all of that. And then the first appendix is Daniela's little book of magic. For people who are into folk magic, whether it's from a more academic place or whether it's from an experiential place, you want to actually do these things, use them. I think that in and of itself is a particularly useful thing to have. It's not the sort of magic, for the most part, that you're going to find in your, I guess you would say, like, bog standard beginning witchcraft kind of book. It's a different approach to things, although some of it is very useful, things like banishing malevolent spirits. There's other things like relating to controlling anger that you just don't find as much, in my experience, in books like this. And then one of the most amazing things about this book, besides that it's just a good book and I recommend people check it out, is it does also include another appendix. This would be Appendix B, which is resources. And so obviously this book is autobiographical. It's not heavily cited. It's not an academic work. It's not a bunch of references to where the information is coming from. The information is coming from the author. It's based on her experiences. It's what she grew up with. It's what she learned when she was growing up. And that is all fine. But she does very kindly include an appendix, which is resources, which are recommended places that readers can go to learn more about this particular subject, both folk healers in Romanian culture, as well as just folk beliefs in Romanian culture more generally. And I highly recommend it. Even if you're not someone who is normally super interested in autobiographies, I think that you'd probably find this more interesting than you might be expecting. But just for the research you can do from the resources, it's such an excellent thing. And it really, to me, what makes this particularly invaluable, the resource list, is that a lot of times when you run across things like that online, or when I'm trying to research a subject that I'm not as familiar with, like, Romanian folklore, fairy belief, I don't know how to discern on online sources what is good and what is not. There's so much out there, and if you don't have a certain level of knowledge with a subject, it can be really difficult, sometimes even impossible, to sort through what is quality, what is reliable, and what is not. And I think that one of the particularly useful things with this is it's being written by someone from within the culture who is Romanian, who grew up in Romania, who has that ability to discern, is this a good source? Is this not a good source? And passing that on lets the reader kind of immediately cut through the other things that might be out there that are not good places to be looking, that are not going to give you reliable information, and kind of go to the better options. So I think just for that, it's an amazing book. But beyond that, the author really is a talented author. And like I said, I liked first book, Where Fairies Meet. Highly recommend that. I knew that the writing was quality. That book, however, is more academic in tone. It is meant to be more academic. This one is not, and not everyone is able to write nonfiction. And something like this, which is also nonfiction, is an autobiography. But in order for an autobiography to be a good read, you have to have an ability that fiction authors have to write things and convey things in an engaging, captivating way. And not everyone has that. Some people are good at one and not the other. In this case, the author is good at the nonfiction, but is also really good here with writing an autobiography in a way that you get pulled into the story. You feel like you know the people, you feel like you understand what's happening, the setting that it's in, the way the information is being passed. It just sort of, it pulls you in. And it's a good read just from that perspective. Obviously, I really liked it because I'm kind of raving about it a little bit. Full disclosure, I should say I do know the author, so I guess you could say maybe a little bit of bias there, but I am being honest in everything I'm saying. If I did not think it was a good book or I did not like it, I would be honest and say that, and probably not be making a video recommending it. But I am recommending it, and I am doing this video because I genuinely think it is a good book. I like the way the author works the folk beliefs and little bits of magical practice into the autobiographical story. A lot of people have tried to do this. I have read far too many books that are either meant to be autobiographical or are meant to be fiction, but written in sort of an autobiographical tone, that do not do this well, where it's very stilted. It's very clear that things are being sort of forced into the story for a wider purpose. And one of the things that's particularly good with this book is that you never get that feeling. You never feel like you're being lectured. You never feel like you've wandered from an autobiography into a Witchcraft 101 book. It all feels very organic and it flows really well, but it still has a lot of teaching information in it. You learn about Romanian fairy beliefs. You learn about the ideas around these spirits, how they're approached, how they're treated, what the beliefs are. You learn about some of these folk magic practices, the ones that the author specifically discusses anyway. And it all feels very organic. The only thing I think a reader would have to watch out for, because it is so well written, and it's not meant as a criticism, but I think it might sound a little critical, is it is easy to start to slip into this as if it was a novel. And it's easy to kind of start to read it because it's so well written, because the characters are so well done, and start to feel like they are characters, that these aren't people that this real person knew growing up. So I found it helpful sort of as I was reading to just keep reminding myself that this is an autobiography. This might also just be a me problem though, because I read a lot of fiction. I don't read a lot of autobiographies. I read a lot of fiction though. So my brain might just be preset for assume that it's fiction. So I did find it helpful to kind of keep reminding myself this is an autobiography. This is the author's real experiences, her story. And I just found that as you go through it, you get pulled into it. You feel like you're experiencing it with the author. And just from a good storytelling perspective, it's a good book, which is part of why I wanted to do this review. Multiple reasons why I'm doing this review, but part of why I wanted to do it is that I think, in particular, the audience for my videos would really enjoy, honestly, both of these, but particularly this one, just because of the way it relays this information in an engaging, sort of fun storytelling format, where it doesn't feel like you're like in a college or university level class trying to get a lot of, stuff thrown at you all at once. So I think I've rambled enough, and I have definitely established how much I like this book. But for everyone out there, Fairy Path by Daniela Simina is a really good option if you are interested in Romanian folklore or fairy beliefs. It's also just a really good option if you're looking for a really good autobiography to read that talks about someone's spiritual journey, particularly from the time they were a child. I know there's a lot of books on the market that do that, but those books tend to have a very different tone to them and often are coming from a very different spiritual place. So, highly recommend this one. Encourage people to check it out. I think you'll like it as much as I do, but feel free in the comments to let me know if you do get it, if you do read it, what did you think of it? Did you agree with what I said here? Do you have a difference of opinion? We can have an open conversation about it, but encourage people to check it out. I know the people who follow my channel are particularly interested in fairies and fairy folklore and fairy beliefs, and this kind of gives you a different side to those things than from what is normally easily found, at least in the United States and in Western Europe, often because of a language barrier, but nonetheless, difficult to find good resources on material from Eastern Europe. And I think this is a really good option. Like I said, I think depending on what you're looking for, it's going to cover a lot of bases, and it's just a fun read. So it's always nice to recommend something that's just fun to read. Sometimes I read way too many very heavy, dusty academic books. So I enjoyed this one. It was a nice change of pace. That's my thoughts on it. That's my book review. I guess some food for thought for all of you out there. If you do get the book, like I said, let me know in the comments if you got it, what your thoughts were, because I would love to get some input. And also let me know if you like me occasionally doing these sort of more book review related to fairy folklore mythology subjects videos. Let me know, and I can do more of this. I haven't so far. I've tended to more focus on specific topics, but every now and then books are either so glaringly bad that I have to do a video to explain why people probably want to save their money, or so good, in the case of this one, that I just want to do a video to put it out there for people who might also be interested in it. There are so many books out there, it can be really hard to decide what to invest in, what to invest your time and your money in, and what direction to go in. This is my recommendation for today. Let me know your thoughts in the comments.